Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing day 24 of KaffeBox's Advent Calendar, featuring the Finca Inés washed Gesha from Muttley and Jack. And there's the container right there. And it's a washed Costa Rica, they just have washed in the name, so. Well, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Muttley and Jack. So they're based out of Stockholm, and my first time ever trying, hearing of, and reviewing them was all back on day 17 when I reviewed their washed processed Walichu Wachu Ethiopia. And if you didn't watch that video, then I made a little bit of a mistake. They have a brew recipe on KaffeBox's Instagram page that I put for the Chemex that probably wasn't intended for the Chemex and kind of resulted in a little bit of a under-extracted mess that I had to use whatever beans were left over to try to create my own recipe and fix it. And I think it turned out fine, but I don't know if it was exactly what they were looking for. This one, I feel like I did a much better job of working through the recipe that they have and assimilating it with the Chemex, so I think this one will be a little better. Let me go ahead and talk about that recipe so you understand what I'm talking about. 500 grams of water to 31 grams of coffee, so a 16.1 to 1 water to coffee ratio, 96 to 97 degrees. This one was 205 to 206 degrees Fahrenheit. And then they have very specific instructions for the V60, but since I was using the Chemex again, I didn't follow those exactly. But again, I think the coffee turned out more in line with what I should have expected. And with that out of the way, we'll actually discuss the coffee now. So I didn't have anything that I felt really notable, just a first impression between the beans themselves, the ground, and the first bloom. But it was after that first sip, it was definitely a very kind of strawberries and cream coffee. Very comfortable with saying that. But what I want to emphasize about this coffee specifically is the changes in temperatures for this coffee drastically changed the coffee itself. That's obviously a very common thing with coffees, but this one was more so than most other coffees I've had, especially in this Advent calendar, where it was just really drastic changes. And it made coming up with my tasting wheel a little tricky because things were changing so much that what was once a 3 or what was once a 4 could now be a vice versa. But as it had cooled down slightly, initially strawberries and cream, some tropicals, and then a pretty floral cup of coffee. And as it was cooling down even more, and what I'm tasting now is probably what I would describe definitely as a little bit more lemony coffee. And the taste profile they have listed on here is floral, which I was definitely getting. Probably the most prominent and consistent thing throughout this cup of coffee. Floral's always been there. Lemongrass, and that's what it is the most as it's cooled down. Strawberries, creamy round mouthfeel, elderflower aftertaste. So I was extremely in line with what they had listed on their KaffeBox Instagram page. So I did an okay job, and my flavor profile was much more on point with this coffee. I'll go ahead and put up the tasting wheel right now so you can see what I was getting as well. And I emphasize that all of these things could have changed. While it was initially a pretty strawberry forward coffee, the more it's cooled down, I would definitely move that from a 4 to a 3, maybe even a 2 at some point. The finish could have even gone down a little bit. Sweetness definitely could have gone down. Acidity could have possibly gone up. Again, I think the only thing that really remains consistent is I'm happy with those florals at 4. But everything else changing so much throughout this coffee. This tasting wheel is only accurate for certain temperatures in this coffee, I would say. And it's because of that I have pretty mixed feelings on this coffee. I loved that very nice start to this coffee, that's super strawberries and cream and kind of tropical fruit beginning. And the florals were pretty nice as well. However, the part I wasn't the biggest fan of is I'm not a huge lemongrass person. So as this coffee has cooled down for me, I'm not enjoying it as much as I enjoyed the start of this coffee. And that's perfectly fine. I think I didn't know what I was drinking going into this, and when I was drinking it, I had no clue either. I didn't have a good guess. And finding out that this is a washed Costa Rica Gesha, I feel like that kind of influenced my final opinion on this coffee, because those are typically my favorite types of coffee in the entire world, those washed Central American Geshas. But this one just wasn't necessarily my favorite. Looking back on things, I probably enjoyed the first Muttley and Jack coffee more than I enjoyed this one. But I feel like this one's a kind of interesting recommend because I would recommend this coffee to people that definitely do enjoy that kind of lemongrass flavor towards the end, because that's very prominent. But I feel like maybe if I played around quite a bit with this coffee, then I could get to a little bit more of those flavors. And if you enjoy your coffee at higher temperatures, and I know that's kind of an interesting thing to say because I've always been the type that enjoys coffee a little bit warmer, then I think this is definitely a coffee for you if you do enjoy both florals and some fruity sweetness in the coffee. Interesting opinions and thoughts on this one. But given that this is my last KaffeBox Advent Calendar coffee review, I'm just going to let you know what's coming up ahead. Tomorrow I'm going to try to come up with a video with my overall thoughts and impressions of the entire Advent Calendar as a whole, as well as, you know, maybe focus on which coffee roasters and coffees I really enjoyed the most in this Advent Calendar specifically, and kind of compare it to my vast experience with American coffee roasters just as a whole. So look forward to that video tomorrow, but I'm going to leave this review at that. So if you've tried this coffee and if you've tried Muttley and Jack, please let me know your thoughts and opinions of both this coffee and them as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And this right here has been a review of the Finca Inés washed Gesha, washed Costa Rica from Muttley and Jack. Thank you for watching.